Perhaps the best example of this crossing out of Black stories comes from the Spanish-American War, when the U.S. intervened in the Cuban struggle for independence from Spain. The explosion of an American battleship, the USS Maine, in Havana's harbor, roused public support for war.
We go to war with Spain in 1898 to conquer Cuba and Puerto Rico, and eventually that culminates in one of the most famous battles of American military history, the battle at San Juan Hill.
Black soldiers make up about 3,000 men, or 13% of the U.S. troops sent to Cuba. The Spanish-American War is brief, lasting roughly 6 months. But it was enough to promote the career of a little-known New York City politician named Theodore Roosevelt.
Roosevelt was a prima donna. He had never been in the military before. He literally organized the Rough Riders out of whole cloth, despite the fact that he had no military background. And he sort of pushed his way in to lead the Rough Riders in Cuba.
We've all heard the story of Teddy Roosevelt charging up San Juan Hill. Now the real story. They charged up San Juan Hill after the 10th Cavalry had breached the defenses.
A black soldier, Sergeant George Berry of the 10th Cavalry, planted the flags atop the hill. Roosevelt and his men arrived well after the 10th and the 3rd Cavalry, a white regiment.
If it had not been for the timely aid of the 10th Cavalry, the Rough Riders would have been exterminated. Sergeant Lewis Bowman, 10th Cavalry, Tampa Morning Tribune.
After the battle is over, there are all the official photographs. And the photograph that we most see now in classrooms is Theodore Roosevelt standing in the middle and his Rough Riders all around him. If you extend that photograph out, then you'll see the black soldiers. And in a way, that's a metaphor for what happened on San Juan Hill, that it is assumed that Theodore Roosevelt led the Rough Riders up. They were the ones who defeated the Spanish, and that broke the back of Spanish resistance and led to the American victory. In fact, it was a victory that belonged as much to the Buffaloes.
Perhaps the most notorious incident of racial injustice involving the Buffalo Soldiers occurred in the summer of 1906, when the 1st Battalion of the 25th Infantry transferred to Brownsville, Texas. On the night of August 13th, shots rang out and a white bartender was killed. Locals claimed that they witnessed black soldiers firing weapons. White officers attested that the soldiers had been in the barracks and none of their weapons had been fired.
But because they were black, they were all going to pay.
167 African-American soldiers were discharged without honor for a crime that they didn't do.
Many of those soldiers had served with distinction for 20 years.
One of those soldiers was First Sergeant Mingo Sanders, who was partially blinded during his service in Cuba and whose commanding officer called Sanders the best non-commissioned officer I have ever known.
It was Theodore Roosevelt who ordered the 25th Infantry discharged after the Brownsville affair.
The African-American community, which had supported Republicans since the Civil War, was outraged. But Roosevelt refused to budge.
All of the evidence showed that these men were innocent. But because Roosevelt wanted to make sure that his Southern, constituency was okay, that's what he did.